You are tuned into the Famous Dwayne's podcast. I am your host, Dwayne. With me is a very special guest. Um, he's a man that wears many hats. Even when I don't think I've ever seen him wear a hat, but that's not the point. Um, MC, intellectual, distinguished gentleman, Mr. Braxton. Say what up to the people.
What's up, y'all? Glad to be here again. Glad to be a frequent visitor.
Yeah. Some people can only come by the crib once, but
Yeah, man, you invited me back a couple of times. So I'm like, all right, I guess I ain't eat all the shit out your fridge. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right.
Right. Just bring the finest cognac. We'll be all right. So today we are talking about we're going to talk about being black men in America, and being better black men in America. I think that's actually how I started. I think I had a couple discussions about this with different people. One of my boy Justin's platform, who should be joining us shortly, and a bunch of other different things, because I feel like, at least on social media, you hear about, the men talking crazy about the women talking crazy about the men, and it doesn't go anywhere because it's not coming from a source that is welcomed.
Right.
It's one thing to be like, yo, bro, you wildin', as opposed to, see, this is why men always be wildin'. This is a different energy. You may not know what it's like to be a black man in America, to know what it's like. And even though we're not a monolith, far from it, there's definite, commonalities that we all have.
Right.
And, we just need to reach out and share our experiences and just move forward as a culture.
Mm-hmm.
So, Braxton, in your heart of hearts, what do you think is one of the biggest things that men need to first focus on to get themselves started on the right foot?
Number one, it will come down to understanding their own self-worth, for one thing. And I think a part of that comes from also understanding the world around them, because much of what the world does is in direct correlation to suppressing black people. I mean, as much as they hate to admit it, you know what I mean? And so that must mean that we're worth something, right?
Right.
That must mean that, our intelligence, our knowledge of self, our understanding of self, and a positive self-perception has to in some way be some sort of threat. And when you look at it that way, you can come to understand with a little bit more clarity, mental or spiritual, as to who you are and how important you are. Then comes the question, well, then what do I do about it now that I know that I am so valued as a black man or as a black person, right? But since we're talking about black men, as a black man, then you can talk about different ways wherein you can, number one, treat yourself, or give yourself that type of treatment as to for all the damage that has been done to you, right, by these multiple offenses and assaults that have been perpetrated against us, right? And that takes the form in many ways, right? Whether it means, us communicating with each other, us being honest with ourselves as to how we feel about what's going on in our lives as black men.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we can start to understand a little bit better how that relates to our relationship with black women, and how, oh, wow, you can't see this. How that relates to our relationship with black women. And then from there, we can talk about the importance of black families. So we kind of have to work with self, right? And understanding the self and the self-consciousness, and understanding where that self-consciousness fits within the overall grand picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm a big proponent of being being a self-savior, realizing that you are your own responsibility, and no one owes you anything.
Right.
especially as a man, women and children, they get the benefit of the doubt. They get, they get a pass in a lot of ways. But as a man, like, nah, like, you got to own up to it. So with that being said, give me 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. So yeah, just being able to make the bed that you're lying. You know what I'm saying? Lie in the bed that you made. Excuse me. So, I mean, as far as even the karma that comes back to you, you may have lived a certain lifestyle and then you may have tried to get on a righteous path. And then, sometimes every once in a while, a seed that you sown back in the day has finally come to fruition and started to sprout. And it's just like, damn, I got to deal with that.
Catches up. Yeah.
You got to deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Ideally in a better position to do that. But, you always have to be cognizant that every action that you put out there, has some sort of reaction to it. And I think that as men, especially, you have to own up to it. I know back in the day, I'm not sure about now, but back in the day, like some of the older films that you would see portraying black men, this woman comes out of nowhere with a baby that's like, oh, this is your son. Just like,
yeah,
really? Like, but yeah, that's the bed that you made. So there you go. So I definitely think that self is definitely the first step with that. Once you master self, you can start to master the world around you. Once you realize where your place is in this world, and that only comes from knowledge of self. So when it comes to that, I think about when it comes to like self-discovery, books are cool, but a lot of times it's meditation, prayer, whatever, kind of tickles your spiritual fancy, if you will. But also just isolation. If you could find somewhere in nature to kind of just tune everything out, no phones, no nothing, just tune everything out and just be one, and just kind of think about experiences that you've had over time and think about how it molded you to who you are today. And then be like, okay, this is why I'm this way, but is that who I am or is that not who I am? So you have to be your own therapist. Like, if you've ever seen the therapist or done anything like that, you need to kind of do that to yourself. You need to start that work first. That's what I've done with myself in a lot of ways. And, it's definitely shed light on a lot of things with me. And I'm definitely a better person for it. But again, it's that for some people, that's torture, holding yourself accountable, reliving, past traumas and trying to make sense of what's happened in this, what do I want to call this? Babylonian times, I guess.
Yeah. It's like I remember in Godfather, part 1, right? Vito, he says to Michael, he says, women and children can afford to be careless, men can't afford to be careless.
Big facts.
And this is not to say, right? This is not to say that the things that happen in men's life, whatever traumas they endure, don't have long-lasting effects, and not that they shouldn't be taken seriously, and not that we should have a mentality that's just like, oh, well, just get over it, right? It's not to say we shouldn't take those things seriously, but at the same time, we have to keep in mind that civilization, in terms of like from an institutional perspective and a systematic perspective, is governed by men. And so because of that, there are people that are counting on us, such as the women and children, that are counting on us to exercise or whatever demons are have been brought in our lives or whichever, or they're counting on us to be honest with ourselves as far as where areas wherein we need improvement, so that we can be, better assets to the community, to our respective community. This is just men in general, you know what I mean? But as far as who we are as people, Black men, we probably got it. Well, we definitely have the worst out of anybody, right? So the hill is that much more steep, for us. But it's not really about how much work it is. It's really about how much worth it is, you know. And the
Right.
fact is, it's worth it, you know. For one thing, we got a country or a world that would like to annihilate us, right? If that isn't enough incentive, I don't know what else is, right? But then also we think about the people that are counting on us, the women and children that are counting on us, even if they don't want to admit it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
at one point they'll say that we're absolutely useless and they wish we all, left. If you ask social media, but in the next tweet they'll be talking about how well you guys don't protect us enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even the ones who are publicly against us, right? They still are waiting for us to undo whatever shackles are put on us, right? So we can figure this thing out and lift us up as a people. You know what I mean? They are,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. I tell brothers this all the time. I say, I don't care what you heard a black woman say against black men on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever. I don't care what you heard. The fact is, what they expect of us is leadership, even if they don't want to admit it, right?
Right.
Doesn't mean, that your feelings don't matter or the things that you've gone through, they don't matter, right? But it does mean that you are responsible uh, for fixing those.
Right.
Our leadership is one that's, it should be in service to the collective, right?
Right.
Leadership is a form of service, right? And in order for us to really improperly be in that posture of leadership where we can efficiently and adequately and effectively and impactfully serve the community, we have to make sure that we're honest with ourselves as to what areas we need to improve in. We need to go into that isolation so we can do that self-reflection and be our own therapist first, right? Which takes a lot of honesty. And that's, to be honest with you, that's much more difficult, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
much more difficult than just saying, I went to therapy, right?
Yeah.
Actually look yourself in the mirror and be honest with what brought you to that point.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I say 99.9 is an arbitrary stat, but 99.9% of people aren't willing to do.
Big facts.
Fortunately, the few that are, we need to increase them.
Yeah, and that's not even gender exclusive, but we're not trying to do that, play that game.
Yeah, yeah.
That I know you are one of my shit that
Uh-huh.
going on the internet. Like,
Yeah.
remember, we got things to do. We got kingdoms to build.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, accountability is like really the biggest thing. Honesty and full transparency. Not necessarily with everybody, because that's not anybody else's business what you do with your life, but full transparency with yourself. Like, people lie to themselves all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost as if like you're in like the relationship with yourself is going to reflect in everything else. You know what I'm saying? If you have low self-esteem, you're going to probably be around low self-esteem individuals that, or even like that may even have lower self-esteem than you do to make you feel better about having low self-esteem.
Right.
It's man, it's so much to unpack in regards to the issues that we go through, but let's more so focus on solutions here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll just be another man bashing show, and it's not
Mm-hmm.
that channel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And mind you, right? So like what we say when we say this, right? So this is to your point, right? We always want to be solution oriented. And to that point, the way to come up with a solution is to have an adequate understanding as to what the problem is. You know what I mean? So I think what we were doing, I don't even think we were creeping on man bashing just now. What I think we were doing was just having an honest discussion so that we can at least have a point from which to start, so that we can start prescribing, solutions. You know what I mean? And this is important because, first of all, you got people who make a living and they get their juice off of just talking about the problems all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the end of the conversation for them. You know what I mean? Whereas we're really starting as like the very, very beginning of the conversation, right? Because most of it is going to be talking about what the different areas and different things that we can do to fix it.
Right. I definitely think also, as men, we need to hold each other accountable. Like, not just us. Once we master us, then we can start to, reach out to others, our peers and stuff like that. We got to know when they can be saved per se,
Mm-hmm.
and when they can't.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, we also need to realize that even though they may be able to be saved, they may not be able to be saved by us.
Mm-hmm.
You have that humility and discernment to know that, because I mean, some people, I think honestly, I think there's certain people out there that get off on having a level of helplessness and always being, yo, I'm down bad again. Oh, this happened. Shorty
Mhm.
kicked me out. Shorty sliced my tire. Shorty shot at me. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you bail me out? Whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. And they kind of get off on that. And, there's always needing somebody.
Mhm.
It's a form of manipulation, whether it's conscious or unconscious.
Mhm.
But it's definitely a form of manipulation, and that can definitely stifle growth for everyone. So being able to notice that, and one, not hold that person, don't take it personal, because that's just who they are,
Yeah.
whether they can help it or not. That's who they are. It's a parasitic kind of thing. And I mean, at the end of the day, parasites just trying to live
Mhm.
off somebody else.
Yeah.
That's what the function is. So I can't be mad at you for that, but I just will not allow myself to be subject to that kind of behavior.
Absolutely. And it's like, listen, I think it was what Jay-Z said it, and what's it called? Feeling it. He said, every nigga in your clique is rich, your clique is rugged. Nobody will fall because everyone will be each other's crutches, right? So the point is, it's like, listen, this can't be a, as you said, parasitic relationship, right? Because it's like I have people that depend on me. I have
Hmm.
people that depend on me. You know what I'm saying? As men, we have to make sure that you got to be straight, right? And I have to be straight. And we all have to have our degree of autonomy and self-sufficiency, um, and self-accountability, right?
Hmm.
So that we can actually, you don't need to be somebody that's like you don't take the place of my child and my wife. You know what I mean? That's,
Right.
they're in that position for that reason. You know what I'm saying? And this is not
Exactly.
you know, it just ain't go. It ain't like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, as far as helping brothers out when it comes to accountability, right? There comes a time, obviously, where you want to feed them the fish. Then after a while, you want to teach them the fish, right? And then after a while, you got to say, all right, now you need to fish. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
because a lot of times you teach a brother, oh, well, thanks for teaching me that. By the way, can you give me another one? You know what I mean? And
Right.
I see that all the time, and I've experienced that, whether it's from, friends or family members, or, the family members at the family reunion, they always asking for money, that kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, I'm not helping you, and you damn sure ain't helping me.
Right.
Us continuing this cycle, you have to reach a level of self-sufficiency because you got people that depend on you. And I ain't your damn dad, and I ain't your man. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Right.
I'm not in this, you know what I'm saying? It has to be, where we are, because, and this is the thing, right? So you got certain people, certain black men, right, who will, if they see a brother in need, they might look down on them. They might say, you know, uh, they might just teach them how to fish, right? It's just like something that's good for the long term, but doesn't really address their short term need, their immediate need. You got people who choose either or. They either give you a fish or give you, teach you how to fish, right? But the
Right.
truth usually lies somewhere in the middle. A lot of times, what helps their immediate need, you can help them out there, and then you say, okay, for the future reference, this is how you make this happen for yourself. Now, after this point, or at this point, you're on your own. You know what I mean? It has to be sort of an amalgam of all those different steps, just in a particular order, and that's how you can teach a brother to stand on his own without being condescending to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
You still can have compassion for him, but you have to let him know this is limited because you're going to have to be able to walk on your own.
Right.
Because there could come a day where I might need you. I might need a favor from you.
Right.
And you know what? Matter of fact, I think from there, we really should, what would also help is if we have a firm understanding as to what is manhood, how they define it.
Right.
Because typically speaking, men will respond to things. I mean, and women know this, right? Because the moment they want to grab us by the balls, they say, a real man would do this, right? Which is usually
Hmm.
something they want us to do, right?
Thanks.
But that usually works on a lot of us. Not me, because I don't, but it usually works on a lot of us, right? So if we have an understanding as to what a real man does, right, there are certain things we won't have as much of a tolerance for constantly being dependent on people. You know what I'm saying? We'll be more incentivized to make a way for ourselves,
Right.
because we believe that we are living up to the standard of as to what is manhood. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there's a place for accountability. There's definitely a place for, being that shoulder that a black man can lean on. But there's also that place, and once we have an understanding, not just who we are, but what manhood is, which, yeah, that's relative depending on different cultures, right? You know, we can have a different definition.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
definitely.
But once we understand that, okay, it's a lot of that stuff is a lot easier because of what would real men do in this situation?
Right.
So it helps, yeah.
Most definitely. And you know, I'm thinking that I feel like, yeah, depending on, you know, the culture, you know, manhood can be defined in different ways.
Mhm.
But I think that there should be certain aspects of manhood that should be universal,
Right.
at least over here
Right.
in, you know, the US of A.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's you know, one, being a provider, being a protector, and being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the bare minimum. That's the C minus
Right.
for you degenerate niggas out there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's definitely that. And, you know, really, I feel like on the, not even just the social media situation, but just like how it's always been as far as society goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we think about how, you know, oh, she's just for the night. She's, oh, this is wifey. This might be wifey, whatever, whatever. But when it comes to us and how we socialize ourselves, it's never more than just being that nigga. And it's like,
Yeah.
that can mean a multitude of things.
What does that mean? Yeah.
And I'm not even gonna like fully demonize that, because I do remember at I took my ex to the prom. This is many moons ago.
Mm-hmm.
I took my ex to the prom and someone asked who I was, and I said, that nigga. That's how I introduced myself, as that nigga.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so me and so not me at the same time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, just realizing like what do I aspire to be? What am I looking forward to being, to growing, to developing into?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, we need to really think about developing into father figures, even if you're not, even if children isn't your thing, you know, still being a father figure in your neighborhood, in your community,
Mm-hmm.
you know, at least doing that, because there's somebody that needs you, you know, being a good husband, if that's, again, your calling, but still just being an upstanding gentleman in general just kind of covers that across the board.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they're good husbands and terrible fathers, and vice versa. And a gentleman should have the capacity to be both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we have to really think about how that really affects not just us, but those around us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, shit, you know, I'm not going to say I got this husband's thing down pat, but so far so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but
It starts with the man, because that's who you are. You didn't have to, you know, turn into a husband. You're
right,
already nurturing those virtues from the, you
right,
know, this is years, and really kind of just walking into it. You know what I mean?
right,
To the position, not necessarily the actual role. And you know what I mean?
yeah,
It's an easier transition because again, it starts with the man. You know,
yep,
from a man's perspective, if you've already been working on and striving towards those ideals, right? And one thing I can't stand when you tell someone to strive to be their best or to their best ideals, and they use this ridiculous straw man argument like, well, nobody's perfect. It's like, I never said you had to be perfect. I
yeah,
said you need to strive towards those ideals. Because the
right,
fact is, you will never be perfect, but you will be the best that you can be.
right,
So that's why it's easy. So, you know, to your point initially, you know, when you were talking about those three things: protection, provision, and leadership, you know, those things should be universal across different cultures, absolutely. And when it comes to us, we have to have deeper conversations, right, as to what works best for our family, and our families and our, you know, micro communities, and that'll have an effect on the overall collective as to what that leadership means. You know what I mean? Because you got authoritarian leaders, you got very democratic leaders, you have, you know, I don't know, very hands-off, laissez-faire type. You know, there's
mm-hmm,
different types of leadership, right? And so, you know, my definition of leadership, a big part of that is the ability to teach, right? And it's because I talk a lot, for one thing, right? But I like to share things and to make sure I'm equipping people and the people around me. You know, that's the big thing, right? Empowering them through teaching them how to be leaders themselves, or teaching them, areas of skills that they might not know. It's a big thing about, but you have some people who are leaders in the sense of a title. You know what I mean? It's like that. Let's say you have that father, right? Who, I mean, technically he does, he ain't gonna let nobody else beat his wife and kids.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He ain't gonna let nobody else pay for his sons, whatever. But, so he is protecting and providing. And in that regard, he is leader because nobody dares question him and they follow whatever he does, right?
Mm-hmm.
But is it out of respect or fear? That's a big thing,
Yep.
Do I follow this leader because I'm scared he's gonna whoop my ass? Or do I genuinely admire the virtues that he espouses? You know what I mean? And that's a big thing. I was telling a sister the other day, well, this was a couple of months ago. And matter of fact, you probably seen it, Mother Lee, right, on Twitter. I was talking to her over the phone, and I said, it is important that we as Black men become the heroes that Black women tell us we are every day.
Right.
And that's important, you know what I'm saying? Because when you think of a hero, you think of someone you aspire to be, or someone you aspire to be like, or someone who embodies those characteristics that you aspire to, those ideals that you aspire to, right? And that is one, in our case, one that is edifying to the community. And so we have to make sure we continue, because we are doing that, right? We don't get a lot of credit for that, but that's why we have conversations like these. We continue to build upon those virtues so that we can continue to exemplify that, I don't want to say that archetype, but that standard, right?
Right.
Righteousness of the ability to teach, the ability to protect, to have a certain degree of firmness and strength, but at the same time tenderness. Balance, right? Because it's easy to be soft as shit and then to be hard. It's easy to go from one, but the balance between the two, in my opinion, that's what leadership is, and that's what another ideal that men need to strive towards. You know what I mean?
Yes, balance is so tantamount. I'm just thinking about what you said, like, because even like when we're maybe a few years apart, like maybe a half a generation apart, maybe. And what my thing was, like, growing up, it was always either you're a thug or a homosexual. Like, there was nothing in between. And it was just, I can't even say both. But the point is, like, either you were soft, you were you were a chump, you were sensitive, whatever, or you were, thug, guns blazing, whatever. But again, there needed to be a little bit of both. You need to be able to have that sensitive side to reach the people that you're supposed to be leading.
Yeah.
Like the
you
people
tap
under
into
you.
the reserves of each when it's necessary.
Exactly.
You be strong, and there's a time when you need to be tender. I think a lot of times, this is especially, we've done our part in, perpetuating this. As a community, we'll be accountable for that, but we're not fully to blame for that. A lot of it, as you know, right? We talk about this all the time. A lot of what is portrayed in the media, they can only look at us in polar opposites. Yep. Either softest baby shit, or we about to shoot the whole block up. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, when you look at it that way, because as a people, we want to be righteous, right? But when we look at this thing, like, we want this model of what is good, in healthy and constructive manhood, where we can be strong, but not be threatening, right?
Right.
When we look at the only example of strength, right? We look at, murder rates, drug abuse, drug dealing, whatever.
Right.
Because that's we don't understand that there's a whole universe in between, of real estate in between. You know what I'm saying? We can have both of those and actually be edifying to the community. So a lot of times we feel like we have to choose between those two polar opposites, not knowing that there's some equilibrium, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, now, me, I grew up, honestly, it was the same thing. It was the same thing, to be honest. I was born, 91, and it was, pretty much the same thing. It was either this, or you were soft, or it was like you was a nerd or a geek or whatever, right? There's whatever. But that's like, that's some high school, that's a high school perspective that unfortunately too many of our people don't grow out of.
Facts.
And it's like, and maybe it's because our lifespan be so short. So it's like, being 17 years old, in our years is like being 40 for, I don't know, whoever. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but it's like we just don't grow out of that. But it's like it's a whole universe of strong, constructive masculinity that is just dying to get out and is dying to spread and be recognized, But as long as we continue to look towards the television and the songs, right, for that type of inspiration, we ain't gonna get that. Because the people who pull the strings in that regard, they don't want that. They don't want that.
Yeah, they have that down pat. So it's really about taking control of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And we can only do that so much, but in our house, in our domain, in our household, in our circle, that is one, the most important, and two, the most attainable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there's nothing but like Ratchet TV going on, like, look, you cutting this cable off. Like,
you can watch that
straight
shit.
up.
Yeah. We ain't gonna watch that shit.
Yeah. Or
it's all about what you ingest, man.
Exactly.
It's like I was talking to a friend, and I was talking about, listen, whatever you ingest, right, is what you are going to display. It's every single time. So like, I don't know of any other examples in my personal life, right? I mean, I can't even say that because I got some relatives that are heavy in the streets and everything, but the first black man I ever knew was my dad, right? Now my dad used to be a street guy, but that was way before I was around. You know what I mean? Like that was in the 70s and 80s. I mean, I'm a 90s baby, so I don't know that person.
Right.
I know that it based, indirectly based on what he's told me, but I don't know that. But the strength was still there, right? But he never deprived us as a family of manly affection. I saw him hugging and loving on my mom. I saw he hugged us and kissed us all the time. I got four brothers. So like I saw that all the time. So that she said dichotomy, but those two, I could see that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And even when I looked at, I listen, obviously I listen to rap music, right? So you hear the things they say, right? I was never so unfortunate, thankfully, right? And I say this in all humility, but I was never so unfortunate as to have had to believe that I had to choose between one or the other. Mm-hmm. Because to me, like that middle ground, that was all I knew. I only understood that. That was all I ever saw, every day in the house. So, but understand that a lot of brothers don't have that. And a lot of girls don't have that, right? Because they don't have that because they're just as susceptible to that type of, to getting hoodwinked like that, as the guys are, because that's what they'll start to expect, from the men around them. Based on what they hear, it's like, well, you must be a bitch ass nigga because you don't do this, you don't do that. You know what I mean? Insert whatever, crime or whatever, unhealthy, toxic.
Yeah, we've definitely been hoodwinked, pun intended. But yeah, most definitely. And I think I didn't realize the leg up I had just, having an active father in my life until running into people that didn't.
Yeah.
And then seeing more and more examples of it as you get older and the peers that you've grown up with, still not evolving. And even though, I mean, not all fathers are created equal, obviously, but still just having one, there's just something different about it. I can't quite put a finger on what it is, but it's something that's just different with how the fruit from that tree, manifests. Because I've had, conversations with niggas that's, in the street or, street adjacent, if you will. And it's just like, yo, like, we were raised different. Like, this isn't it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like this ain't it. We gotta figure out something else. Because I think, when in my upbringing, I was always maybe a few steps over from like where it was really going down. There's parties that I left like maybe like seconds after that it got shot up. It was some sort of big brawl, whatever. Like I was always just right close enough away from where it was at.
Right.
But some people that I had that were more into it, and they like to flirt with that life. But
Mm-hmm.
again, as you get older, certain people's like, man, I'm tired of throwing three haymakers and then having to, do whatever. I'm just gonna pull
Yeah.
out the piece and get it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I think now that niggas are getting to the age now, they're just like, you know what? Maybe I should be a family man. Maybe I should do whatever,
Mhm.
whatever. But you don't have to get to that point.
Yeah.
And again, like the whole concept of provider protector, that's all I knew because just watching my father,
Mm-hmm.
and then, hearing the stories after the fact
Mm-hmm.
of this was the situation when we moved here. This is the situation when I kept switching cars. This is the situation where, you know, your grandmother's car got stolen and then your grandfather got it back in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, where like you can kind of piece it together, but like, oh, so this is what happened. This is
Yeah.
how it really goes down. And I'm wondering actually if a level of transparency should be given to the kids,
Mm-hmm.
or should it just kind of, I don't know. I'm trying to wondering about that, like how things may have been different had what really happened been told to me.
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example of that, right? So I'm glad you brought that up because, like, obviously my dad is, profoundly religious, and we always like to talk about our, testimonies. You know how Black folks are, right? So he talks about
Mm-hmm.
it. But my older brother, Kevin, rest in peace, he had a friend, a childhood friend. Well, not even a child. He was one of his boys, right? And when he was college age, and this kid's dad grew up with my dad. And this kid's dad, one day when Kevin was over there, he said, no, it gets a lot worse than what he told me. And he starts telling him really what happened. I was like, oh, okay. Now he never mentions that. Like, I was like, okay, like he never mentioned it was like that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it does help. You know why I think it helps? This is why I think it helps, right? So, well, first of all, let me just go off on a tangent real fast because I think what you brought up was another really important question, right? You talked about, about having a father gives you this leg up. And the whole idea, when it comes to passing down knowledge and understanding and experience to the next generation, is so that the next generation can live life more efficiently than you did.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mistakes that you made, the mistakes that you and I make as men, our sons will not make.
Right.
God willing. Now obviously, there's going to be some times where our kids are going to be hard-headed and they're going to have to learn things the hard way, regardless of what we tell them, because it wouldn't make sense if it was fair, or if it was fair, it wouldn't make sense. But and parenting is hard. That's what makes parenting hard, right? But at the same time, it's like it enables us as men to live life more efficiently, where we don't have to lose 25 to 30 years of our life in the prison system because we know which directions, which street not to go down, metaphorically speaking, which areas and which avenues not to take, and which is the more efficient way to success and all that. Just hold out. You might not be the coolest motherfucker right now, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because what's hip is what's destructive, but just stick to it just for a little bit. And that enables you to live your life much more efficiently. It's about living life efficiently. I was talking to Kia the other day, and I said, you can't, not her, but I said, people cannot be hard-headed when they hear things from people that have been down that road. Can't do that. It would be the dumbest thing. And I said, because if you're one of those types of people that only understand something when you have to go through it, you're living your life extremely inefficiently. Like we
Yeah.
don't know what's on the other side. In this life, we know we only get one in
Mm-hmm.
this life, right? And so because of that, you got to live as efficiently as possible. Don't waste time being hard-headed. You know what I mean? Because you want to be stubborn, or like if just live. And so because when you have a father, right, it enables you to do that, right?
Right.
The complexities of manhood, let alone Black manhood, are such that you really need, at the very least, some sort of OG or some Jegna, right? Which is the African improvement upon the term of mentor, right? You need someone like that, right? And if anything, I'll say this: like my dad, if nothing else, my dad offered me a template as to what manhood was, as to what the responsibilities were. Right now, it's a lot of brothers that never meet their biological fathers, right? And remaining sensitive to that and cognizant of that, we have to understand that's the importance of us taking all the lessons that our fathers taught us, right? We're not going to do everything in the same way. We're going to improve on certain areas that our fathers may not have been perfect in, right? Because
Right.
as great as they were still flawed, right? But at the same time, we can enable it so that other brothers can live efficiently as well, because we set that template for them. You know what I mean? That's really important. You know, I take that with such reverence and almost, I don't know, I would say almost like a religious or spiritual reverence, you know, the responsibility I have as an example in terms of how I live my life, everything from the food that I eat to how I interact with women, how I interact with children, how I interact with other brothers, because I always know that there are brothers that are watching, you know what I mean? And it's, they're learning from me just like, I learned from my dad and my older brothers. Template.
Right. You know, I hate to use the P word because it's been demonized so much, but there's a certain privilege that we have. But with that privilege comes a responsibility. And as you said, like being that example for those that may not have what we have, or maybe they did have something similar, but they may not have had that quality of an experience. And we need to make sure that no matter what, we're always being our best selves, because our gifts and our privileges that we were allotted were not just for us, but for everything connected to us, everything that comes in contact with us. You know, we have a lot of responsibility as men, as leaders, as father figures, as fathers. Like, there's so much that we do and that we're tasked with that we're just like, yeah, you don't really talk about it like that. It's just, you just do it. So, you know, that's definitely something that we need to keep in mind when we're out here hustling and bustling and such, because there's always somebody watching, especially when you fit the description.
It's so important that you mentioned that, right? You just, how we sort of like, I don't want to say flippantly because that sounds like a little bit too haphazard, but certain ways that we might live our life that, we don't think about it because it's just the norm, right?
Right.
But what you'll find, right, is a lot of times brothers who have not had that same privilege, they might crack jokes, they might call us corny or whatever, but before you get on the defensive, right, keep in mind that that could very well and probably is a smokescreen, because they really want to know why you do what you do.
Right.
That could be an opportunity for you to teach, right? It's like, these things are opportunities. We, first of all, as a culture, right, as a Black culture, we are very gifted at roasting each other for just the most mundane, dumb, petty shit, right? It's funny, but at the same time, it can be very counterproductive, right? So a lot of times when you're walking on the path of righteousness, it can be very foreign to people who have not seen an example and have not been given those opportunities where they can actually afford to be righteous.
Right.
As weird as that sounds, right? And so because of that, when you come across them, they might think it's a little strange, like, they might call you this, and that. If you just hold out for 1 second and just break it down, break down as to why, where's this coming from, right? Engage in a conversation. You could really wind up teaching these brothers a lot of times, and they'll walk away. Now, the first thing they're gonna do, right? They mean it as a compliment. They're gonna say you just one of this Louis Farrakhan, Malcolm X motherfuckers. But I mean, listen, because of the example they set, we'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
So all right, deal. But now all that means is now they trust you as somebody that they can aspire to.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. I did a podcast that it was terrible quality. It was like a bunch of niggas with like a mic hanging from like the ceiling.
Yeah.
But the topic was how the hurt phase, or how the whole phase is the whole phase. And give me 1 second. Looks like Justin just entered the room. But
you said how the whole phase is the hurt phase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. How's it going? Sorry about that.
What's up, brother?
Nah, you got perfect timing. I was actually talking about I was going to get into this analogy about men having discipline over their loins. So you got perfect timing.
Okay.
So I had a podcast when we were talking about how the the whole phase is equal to the hurt phase. It was just a bunch of niggas, most of them I never met before. And, you know, we were talking about, you know, the deeper issues as to why, you know, we're whoring ourselves out in a lot of ways. And a lot of that is hurt. A lot of that is, you know, the first girl that we fell in love with broke our heart. And now we just like, well, F that, I'm for the streets now, you know, whatever it is. And I remember somebody was like, dang, you think you Dr. Phil or something? And that's that smoke screen. That we're talking about, just like, damn, this nigga kind of hitting the nerve here. I'm kind of triggered, but I can't say I'm triggered, so I got to make a joke.
Yeah.
So
another gift we got, laughing our pain away. Well, not laughing our pain away, but laughing at our
through
pain.
it. Definitely laughing through it. Yeah.
And I can personally attest to that, as far as like, you know, the hurt phase equaling the whole phase and all that, you know. Every single time that I really like dogged out, right, it was in direct response to I let myself be vulnerable, and it was taken advantage of, or it was ridiculed. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, man, and where I was, you know, where I was standing was like this, right? My home, right? My parents have been together since they were 17 years old. They got married in 83. I mean, this year will be 37 years. Right?
Wow. Yeah,
they've been together for like 40 years, right? I mean, this is even when my mom was in school and my dad was selling heroin. Like they had that type of relationship, right? It was just, you know. And so because of that, if you're not careful, you can really grow up with a lot of naivete about how relationships should go.
Right.
And you think it's all roses. You think you're gonna meet somebody when you're 16, 17 years old, and that's gonna be the person, you know. So you go in there with this almost this childish naivete, right? And so you might have somebody who their upbringing does not lead them to be naive and all that, right? They might be a lot more cynical. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not careful when y'all interact, you know, the immovable object is meeting unstoppable force, then you know it's kind of cataclysmic, right? So naturally, what that would do for me, right, or what that would do to me, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck was that? All right, that was the first heartbreak. All right, cool. You do it again. It's like, okay, it happens 2 or 3 times, okay? And you say, well, maybe I'm not looking at this world right? And your first instinct, once you reach that epiphany or you ask yourself that question, is to go the polar opposite of idealistic, which is extremely cynical, right? And that cynicism, it can manifest into obviously that whole phase, because you're like, well, I don't give a fuck, like, you know. Clearly, you don't want to experience that type of hurt again, so you just want to give yourself the temporary gratification. It only manifests itself in the physical. You know what I'm saying? So it's like in my opinion, from my experience rather, and at least from my observation, as limited as that may be, I feel like there is such a strong correlation, perhaps even causality, between the amount of hurt that people go through and the amount of, you know, wholeness they put themselves to. You got those people like, maybe I just like sex. It's like, all right, cool. But if you dig a little deeper, you're gonna find something. You're gonna find something.
Truth to that. I know Will Chamberlain, who's most famous for the world record, right, of most partners. I think one of his last quotes was like, you know, of all the women he'd been with, I think he even admitted, you know, if I could have just found one, I think, you know, he would have given up all of them just for that one.
Wow.
I also,
go ahead.
You know, recently I saw something on Instagram. I shared it on my profile too. There's a couple. They have a podcast. I don't know if it's called Word to the Street or something like that. But the gentleman was talking about how his wife. He argued, you know, I think you actually trapped me into monogamy, and he made the point that you know, I committed to you at a young age because you know that's what we were trying to do. I wanted to be right by you. I cared about you. You know, all those right things. And he said, but this is what you wanted. You wanted me to be, you know, true to you. But looking back at it over the years, when we look at some of our ups and downs, he brought the point, you know, but this is not really something, at least in terms of sexual energy, this isn't actually something that you even want to maintain because it becomes a chore for you.
Yeah.
I thought it was just interesting to see, you know, starting to have that conversation also around, I guess, sexual maturity. Are men, you know, is it always a whole phase, or is there some truth that some of us may be a little bit more out there than others, perhaps? Something to think about. I'm getting dressed also for work. That's why I ain't got my camera on.
Look, it's just a free zone, man. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Scam on, player. But nah, but yeah, like that is something that, you know, I think needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed honestly, because there's a lot of people that will just use that as a cop out to, you know, continue their degeneracy.
Themselves off easy. Yep.
You know,
Absolutely.
it's an easy cop out, but you know, if the women tell it, it's just like I've heard women say, "Oh, why does nigga want a threesome? He can't even please one woman." But you know, whatever. You know, that's them telling themselves, and you know, they're whatever. But yeah, there needs to be an honest conversation about that. You know, is there a righteous and actual deeper meaning of being with somebody or more than one person, and it making sense, and it not just being for the carnal desires? Is it like really something that makes sense and that's practical? And I don't know, maybe. And I'm open-minded. Not that open-minded, but I'm open-minded.
I remember I had a friend, right, and he had a really bad problem with cheating, right? And I was like, you know, I'm like, bro, I ain't gonna don't keep bringing me in the middle of this to explain shit, building up my bad bill of karma and shit. Like, don't put me in this shit.
Don't make me
He was talking, yeah. And I'm trying to, you know, walk him through, you know, or, you know, help self-discover with him as to why he is almost uncontrollable, right? Or it seemed like as though it was uncontrollable. Now, I would see specific steps that he was making, and I can see how he would always put himself in positions where he would, you know, seemingly always trip and fall into some pussy. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, one thing he said, you know what? I think I might be a sex addict. You know, I was like, maybe. I mean, listen, but you wasn't born with that shit.
Right.
I'm saying it's like, you know, it's not like you was a baby that was born with a crack addiction. You know what I mean? You picked up the pipe eventually. And you keep going back to it, and you keep hanging out in the same spots, and you keep putting yourself in those positions, and you still haven't deleted those apps.
Right.
You know, there's at some point there's an element of choice in it, right? And so, Brother Tucker, to your point, that's definitely, you have people who genuinely they just like that. You know what I mean? And with respect to those people, I think it's important to kind of hear out what they have to say. And I wouldn't even say use, you know, whatever, maybe they're just out there, or maybe they're just, I don't say I would use that as a last resort, because that might not be relevant. It might need to be a first resort. That might actually be the issue. That might actually be the problem, right? But I think what you find by and large is a lot of times when it comes to people, they use that more so as a crutch, right?
Absolutely.
Discipline. You know what I mean?
Discipline. I mean, which I think ultimately that I feel like the more we talk about what we need to do, that's gonna be a what's the word I'm thinking of? That's gonna be routine. That word is gonna reappear over and over again. Discipline in many different areas. You know, while we fall short often is the lack of it. You know, being disciplined. Because I mean, truthfully, when we think about, you know, chasing pussy, one of the big issues is, brother, when you were chasing that, what else should you have been doing? You know, why don't you have this? Why don't you have this together? Why isn't your business working? Why can't you get your grades right? Why can't you get to work on time? Oh, because you was chasing pussy. And you know what? And anyone listening to this, I'm willing to run the bet with you. And I'll even put myself on the fire. And if we look where we're deficient, we're gonna find oftentimes that is coming up. Yeah. You were doing that. That's why you was late for work. That's why you don't get that business plan done. That's why you don't get your studies in, because you was too busy chasing that instead of chasing the true goals, chasing the paper.
Bro, I got so much more efficient when I got off the streets. Everything just like, I mean, you know what's crazy? And a lot of times, let me just say this, right? So a lot of times with dudes, right, what they miss is not even so much when it comes to like cheaters or whatever, right? What they really like more than anything is the hunt. It's the hunt of it, because it's like, it makes you feel, that's like, you know, it's like, we're like natural, I don't know, almost like natural salesmen in a sense. Like we always feel like we have to sell ourselves. It's like, it's the game. You know what I mean? It's the damn, I almost got that one. It's like shooting craps or something like that. You know what I'm saying? It's like playing blackjack. You're like, damn, I almost got that one. And it's like being in a casino, man. It's like being it's in our opinion. It's almost like a casino is like a microcosm of the world when it comes to like sexual interaction. So a lot of Jews, they don't understand like there is a life outside of the hunt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they don't want to explore that, you know, because that seems boring. It's like, well, it's not moving at as fast of a pace. And it's kind of scary for the thought of some dudes to have to slow down and focus on the boring stuff. Like that business that I keep posting on Instagram like it's doing so well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The one you keep capping about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I definitely do think the hunt is definitely a big thing. I think also the need that, the feeling of being desired, that I feel like men don't, I felt corny just saying that. Like, so I know that, like,
You felt like Mitch from Pitiful. They still gonna love me, man. They still gonna want me.
Yeah, like, why don't you want me, man? Like, you know, it's just, I think that's also a factor that men just won't just spell it out. They gotta, like, you know, trying to do that smoke screen again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's definitely something, you know, especially like if you're in a relationship, you get comfortable, you start to fall off a little bit physically. You want to know that if you still had a chance, a lot of niggas use that as leverage. That, oh, the streets still want me. Don't ever, you know, like whatever. They try to, you know, beat their chest. You know, being the big fish in the little pond they made. You know, that they still have, you know, thousands. You know, they still have options. That's what they use it as leverage, like that option of having leverage. Kind of like how women use it sometimes when we want to be immature and, you know, basic and low vibrational. But I think that's really another thing that's part of the issue as well, is just like knowing that you still got it. And sometimes, you know, you take for granted what you have just for, you know, however many minutes of pleasure, however many, you know, just that thrill of just still being out there doing something that you're not supposed to do. You know, a lot of times maybe you're a late bloomer. Maybe you got no hoes in high school or whatever. And now
I didn't. Shit. I know I didn't. So, it was a regular, you know, whatever. So it's like, and matter of fact, I did feel like I had something to prove, right? To myself.
Right.
And I wanted to, you know, my palate was just like, you know, I wanted to really experience, you know, whatever. And so I kind of went out there. And some of that wound up, I'll put it this way though, but me, I will say, if I can say something good about myself in this conversation, right? Well, with me, when I did get into a relationship, it was because I was like, okay, I'm done with this, because this isn't naturally who I am. You know what I'm saying? So once I met a woman that I believed, you know, was worth who I naturally am, I would like, all right, fuck it. Now, I'd be wrong 99% of the time, but whatever. You know what I mean? The whole point is like I was able to actually stop it, right? And unfortunately, some dudes aren't able to stop on a dime like that, but, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. Just the other day, I decided to go through my Facebook DMs for entertainment because I say I was
damn! I did
a lot of funny things.
I did that the other day.
Not the DM.
I deleted all of them.
And the thing is this is the Facebook DM, so this is like going back 10 years. And in some ways, I'm just, you know, now me, and I'm not recommending this for anybody, but you know, if you got, you know your significant other, whatever. But me and my wife have a pretty open door policy with everything. I just, you know, that's what it is. But I was just reading this stuff, like this conversation, like, you know, to her, and she's just like sitting there shaking her head. But one part, I was just like, damn, I was hurt. And I didn't realize that until I read it. I was like, ooh, who is this nigga?
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta, and oh man, the Facebook DMs are very cringeworthy. Like if they want to talk, we were talking about just before you got on, me and Braxton was talking about, you know, being transparent, being honest with yourself. You know, looking at man in the mirror, and ain't nothing like looking at man in the mirror like going through your Facebook DMs from 10 years ago, when you young, thirsty, with no hair on your face. You know what I'm saying? That's another.
You give me an idea, man. You give me a good idea, actually. I might try something like that.
You might want to, again.
It'll humble you fast.
Say what?
It'll definitely humble you fast.
Yeah, it definitely will. It definitely will. And I will say this though, there are some aspects. I was like, yo, like despite my foolishness, because I was out here, I was a fool. I will say that. I was like, behind all the jokes and the whatever and the sexual innuendos, this is kind of a good person here. So I can say that there's no woman out there that I've dealt with that that hates me. At least publicly, I guess. But that's something. At least I was able to carry my affairs with a certain level of decorum.
Right.
I do attribute that to the example being led by my father, because my grandma told me, like, when I was like 16, like, look, you won't stop, you have to cut the whole shit out. She didn't say it like that, but that's kind of like what she said. And I was young, like I was a virgin, but she could tell I was girl crazy already. And she's like, look, don't be doing all that. Like, you need to relax. But my father was like, well, Jess was my father, but Braxton for context, and the listeners. My father was captain of the football team, big chocolate 6'2" brother, whatever. So
chocolate brother.
Yeah, so the world was in his oyster, for the most part. So, but he told me like, yo, like there's plenty, but I was just like, that wasn't my style. I was more so, whatever, and the fact that he told me he didn't swear, I was so proud. I was like, but anyway, tangents aside, again, just having that example, and a lot of this stuff I didn't find out till later, but that just kind of reinforced what I already knew in the example that was already laid out for me. And as men, we have to continue to carry that torch to be like, just examples of masculinity, examples of being a provider, examples of protection. Like, I remember seeing this old stand-up when Kevin Hart was talking about like the first time he seen his father get knocked out, and I'm just like, I can't imagine. Like your first superhero, if you have a father, is your father, and like see him, like see Superman get punched out of his cape, that's gonna do something to your psyche. It's gonna do something, when he's trying to discipline you. You just like whatever.
Yeah, that ain't supposed to happen.
So we definitely need to, like I said, set that example. Just since you kind of linked to the conversation, what would you say is like top priority for Black men to be better in this current state of affairs?
Oh boy. Are we talking about like Black men in America? Because hell, I mean, Black men are on fire. It looks like all over the world right now. I think one, you hinted on it, man. Protection. I think men, Black men in particular, have to see a sense of ownership of their space, and like really seek to like own it and not just flex on that no more, but like do something with it, and declare it on the world, man. I think that comes from, we keep saying this, it's starting to feel corny because we say it so much about, having, knowledge yourself, but taking that, but building on that, man. Taking advantage of, information and learning, thinking for themselves and being concrete and standing on that. And not just following all this media shit. Like, I feel like there's so many men out here that, and I think a lot of them are good guys, man, that, they mean well, but I just feel like, bro, you are blowing with the wind. Everything that they say, you just doing it too. And some of that is probably trying to find yourself, which goes again about that knowledge, right? You don't have to find yourself when you know yourself. So it's that, I think that's the most critical thing, man, is that foundation. Because you can't give security if you don't have any foundation, because you're not secure.
Big facts, and that's what a lot of these women are looking for, is just security. And if you're not even, if yourself, your own personal realm, your own personal space is not a safe space for you, if your head isn't a safe space for you, if your conscience isn't a safe space for you, like, I'm not gonna. Yeah, you just need work to do. That's a nice way of me saying you just need work to do. You know what I mean? Oh man. Yeah, we definitely you definitely hit on the head with that one. Like, yeah, we gotta definitely, and with those brothers that are out there, let's say like maybe mid-20s and up, I will say that there's definitely time to turn things around.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, yes.
I know what the hell I was doing when I was 25, and it wasn't righteous. I'll tell you that much. But at some point though, we need to realize that maybe some of our efforts are more so focused on like the real youth, like the teenagers, the preteens, the children, because those are going to be the future leaders and everything like that, and we need to focus our efforts on them, focus our efforts on the future and paying it forward, because a lot of these people are lost. A lot of these people are lost and don't want to be found. Mm-hmm. And we'll just be spinning our wheels chasing after those people. And we need to really focus and concert our efforts to where it's most needed and most appreciated and most effective. It's all about being efficient. You have the best intentions. I've been to toy drives and stuff like that, trying to give back to the community, and like the community is just like mad ungrateful, and it's so discouraging. Like, I was low-key discouraged. It wasn't even my event. I was just showing support. I'm just like, I can't even imagine like how you put this money up, your own money up, to throw this thing together, to give back to the community that you care about, that you love, where you grew up at, and they're just like mad ungrateful. That has to hit a certain way.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot. And again, like I said, just concerning, like putting those efforts to where it's most appreciated, just basically planting a seed of fertile soil. Mm-hmm. That is tantamount.
It's just important to have a culture of paying it forward. You know what I mean? The lessons that we've learned and that we learn every day as men, they're really of no relevance to the actual community, other than just to ourselves and our immediate selves. If we don't pass it on, and if its effects are not, seen throughout the community in terms of, I don't know, let's say.
Oh, I like that. It's like we're losing culture. Like we in fact, we're no longer, that culture is not being passed down no more. There is no OG on the block. Like nobody's passing that. You just, the young men now, and you see this in like hip hop and everything else, they're just doing what they want to do. There's no rules to live by. There's nothing to respect back to. They out here doing it like it's theirs.
I was in a barbershop, right? And we were talking about that. And I remember when I went to Justice or Else in 2015. And I remember everybody was there. You had every Greek org. You had the Prince Halls. You had Vice Lords. You had GDs. You had Bloods, Crips. You had all these different gangs, right? But they were all there. And I said, normally, well, not normally, but very often, different gangs, so to speak, right, would be at odds if they're in the same geographic location, right? What kept them in line? Number one, they were there for a specific purpose. The specific purpose was there to unite. And the leader, which was Farrakhan, right? Mm-hmm. He's trusted enough, and he's inspirational enough to the point that when people, it doesn't matter where they come from, it doesn't matter what set they claim, whatever, what region they're from, whatever, what block they're from, they know when they go with him, all that shit goes out the door and they need to unite. That's right. So then I said what also changed things and kept things in line was that you had these big motherfuckers called the Fruit of Islam police and shit, and then they can fight very fucking well. So like they can fight really well. So I'm like, but my point is like, listen, the fact is you don't have, those male figures, right, that symbolize strength. I mean, productive strength, strength that actually pushes the culture and the community in a positive direction. If you don't have them enforcing the standard of righteousness, of health in terms of, what we do as a community, how we interact with each other, it's going to lead to that type of chaos. You know what I mean? It's going to lead to the kids acting buck wild and all that, you know, because it's like if there's no OGs, as Tucker, as you said, then, you know, or Justin, sorry, you know, then of course, right? It's there's no order, there's no structure. And you have to have brothers there that, okay, I'll give you another example. I read this article, and it was talking about, I don't know what they call it, herds of elephants. But the point is, when the male elephants, when they get to around the teenage age, they start fucking terrorizing. Like, they start terrorizing the adult female, screaming around and shit, right? What I guess the people that were in charge of the conservation, what they decided to do was they brought in some older male elephants, right? Immediately. Those teenage or adolescent elephants immediately lined up. It was like, how much more is that like a metaphor for life when it comes on the human standpoint? You know what I mean? And it's like, how much more does that really show the importance of making sure that we have, even if it's not a matter of age, but a matter of principle, to, number one, lay down what is the standard, but also to enforce it, right? In a way that's not, you know, on some Gestapo shit or anything like that, but in a way that's in compassion and love. It's like, listen, young brother, I love you. I understand what you're going through. I understand the systemic isms that have led to you being in this situation. But at the same time, I can't have you terrorizing the neighborhood. And I'm going to whoop your ass if you keep on trying. And it's like, you have to have that. It's that love and that compassion mixed with the strength.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What we talked about earlier.
Yeah, most definitely. And I would even go as far to say, you know, they say that a lot of the youth don't respect authority, but at the bare bones of it, everyone respects authority. They just may not respect yours. Because the baddest person on the block, they go a block over.
Ain't shit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People pick their battles very carefully. And again, sometimes you know when you can act out. Very boys especially. You know, boys especially, me being a stepfather and everything like that, like you can, and I see a lot of myself in that. I've always knew what I could and could not get away with.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that, you know, I could laugh a lot of things off with my mom, but I don't think my dad knew I was funny till I was an adult. And
Mm-hmm.
because I knew it wasn't going to fly at all.
Same. Same.
It's like my brothers, right? So like, I grew up with all brothers. There's 5 of us all together. So like coming up under one roof, you know, we talk back a little bit more when it's my mom around. You know, when we got a disagreement, our voice go a little bit higher. The tone and the volume go a little bit higher when we know dad is out of town. When he's upstairs sleeping, it's a different story, right? We know how to act, right? And it's a certain way that men respond. Well, people. There's a certain way that people respond to male figures of authority, right? Male and female, right? And so, so that means something, right? So it's like, okay, they might hold the standards that have been set, right? But it's up to that person who's in that position of influence, in that position of where they revere him. We have to make sure that we have an established standard as to what is productive and edifying for the community, so then we can actually have a mission when it comes to us, or some ethical drive when it comes to how we enforce it. If that makes sense. And thus how we pass it on to those young brothers that are coming up.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, we're not saying, you know, be a bully per se. That's definitely a big difference.
Absolutely.
I think I'm not gonna say the last real, but after this sitcom Dad, it was a sharp decline.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the masculinity of, you know, the black dad archetype. I think after James Evans, it kind of just started to go down.
Yeah.
And even just like thinking about, like, you know, the lineage of my father's, like when my father was my age now, he had 3 kids. He was married, he had a family, whatever. When my grandfather was my father's age now, he was uppercutting niggas that was late on their rent. So it's I
Different
think
era,
that
different time.
it was. It definitely was. But again, I
You said
think
James Evans or James Avery?
James Evans.
Okay, from Good Times. Okay.
Yeah. But James Avery, he was up there too. But I think after him, then it was like
It was
like
a wrap.
shot down. It got
I
shot
can't even
down.
think of another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any dads after that era. I mean, and we had a couple dads, not just James Avery, because Carl Winslow was legit. The
What's the dude?
Parenthood,
Rock?
Robert Townsend, Rock. Oh, Rock was amazing. He's got a lot
Yeah.
of strong scenes.
That was really good.
Yeah, he didn't play.
A couple others. But they not in this generation. Like not on TV in this generation.
Yeah, not at all.
And even then, you can even say that like Martin, he still played with the little OG perspective. With Jerome was the OG, like he was around the way. You know what I mean? Everybody knew him, and if you was in that community, you would look for him, laughing or not. You still respected that man, though.
Otis.
Otis, yup. Otis was a good example of what if you didn't respect him, he was gonna make sure you would next time.
Yeah. You know, and I like that about Martin as well, because it's like, so you got Fresh Prince, and the star is like Will Smith, right? Now, Will Smith, he grew up with both parents. Matter of fact, where he grew up is like around the block from where my girlfriend lives. So it's like you see that he has this positive male role model, not his biological father, but that's in the show. You take a look at something like Martin, which was out at the same time. Martin, in his real life, his father left when he was 8 years old. He was still living in Frankfurt, Germany. And you see, when it comes to the show Martin, I think Martin had a lot of creative control in that show. He always talks about, you think about the episode, I'm sorry I lied to you, Martin, that one when the kid told him he was his dad and shit, right? You remember how serious Martin took that? Like, he was like, and even though it was kind of bothering Gina, he was like, I can't have Shorty running around, like, you know what I mean? And as he said, I think the words he uses, I ain't going out like that. And it's the truth, right? So it's like, the whole idea of fatherhood seemed like it was held in such I don't know, like a spiritual regard, right? The same way we would, somebody call, Baba or Chief or something like that. It just had that same type of esteem that I hope that, and not just fathers, right? But when it comes to manhood in general, Black manhood in general, right? That we take on that same reverence and pass it on.
Most definitely. Jess, you got any more insight? Jess, you there? I'm gonna assume that you muted or something. But yeah, we definitely the fatherhood thing is definitely something that was held in much higher regard than it is now.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if people talk about it, how they talk about the dinosaurs as far as like something like cease to exist or like it's an endangered species. Jokes from like, oh, instead of once you go black, you never go back. Now it's once you go black, you become a single mother, like stuff like that. That whole perpetual, those stereotypes that are perpetuated, and like niggas laugh it off. Oh, yeah, I'm coming to go pick up my son. They come in, they pick up his son. He walks out and leaves. Like that kind of stuff, like that we just laugh off. But like it's sad. It's like hilariously sad, really, about how we've neglected our communities. And
to the point that it's become such a punchline,
Yeah, it has. And niggas will laugh through anything.
The more you laugh at something, the more you accept it.
Yeah.
Let's just face it.
And that's how they play us so much over time, like, because a lot of these things we kind of had warnings, that were coming, but we sat back, we laughed, and now this animal is here, and I think, I guess to piggyback on still with the fatherhood, but I mean, for years you talked about how like dad has been looked at as just some guy that comes to the house and just helps pay bills but isn't really involved. And now we're looking at like, our boys are in trouble, man. Like that's the number one, that's the most endangered kid in schools is Black boys. Like they're graduating at low rates, they're constantly in trouble. They don't know how to, how to regulate themselves, and ain't nobody at home to help them.
Yeah.
Because it's only so much a woman can do. So if anything, if fatherhood, on top of fatherhood, it needs to be wraparound support.
Absolutely.
You know? Like,
what do y'all think? Can I get your thoughts on, because I really agree with this, the importance of male teachers in elementary school, Black male teachers in elementary school.
Man, I'm a Black male school counselor in an elementary school.
Oh, okay,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely, man. We talk about it. I just had a meeting with my principal on Friday, and we talk about how everything we do matters, like the imaging I put on, how I talk, my clothing, everything. All these, because for a lot of kids, I might be the only positive, figure for him. I might be that reflection. You got to treat it that way. Also, sometimes, if dad is in the trenches, he needs that support, and another man can do that, can be that wraparound support to validate the correct things that he's putting in the house. Unfortunately, sometimes it ain't supporting the positive things he's putting in the house. Sometimes we gotta find ways to repackage the negativity that kids are seeing, because I can tell you, man, a lot of young men right now are really angry, and a lot of the anger that we're seeing adults put out on social media, we're seeing adults do it too in the classroom.
Most definitely. As far as to answer your question, Braxton, yeah, most definitely. I realized, because there's this thing that's been going on Facebook for a while. Like, when was it's been circulating like every 6 months or so. When was the first grade that you saw like a Black male teacher? You had your first Black male teacher.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't see one until high school. He actually looked just like my dad, which is weird. So like from the back, like I thought that was my dad, and I was like, I was straightened up, but it wasn't. And I didn't have my first Black male teacher until my freshman year at HBCU.
Same. Yeah.
I would say the same thing, even though I went to PWI, but yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like in hindsight, like yeah, it just didn't register. And I always thought like, it'd be cool to have like a Black teacher, like even like in high school thinking about it, but it just never happened.
So can I hit you with a fact that doesn't get described, talked about enough? Did you know that prior to Brown versus Board of Ed, when Black children only went to schools, in Black communities, meaning that they had only Black teachers, Black children were performing at the same rate or higher than their white peers than they are now?
Yep.
I believe it. I definitely believe it.
Bro, like that, I tell people that if that ain't indicative that one of the biggest crimes of the education system is to not have a significant, force of, Black teachers that match the schools, the students, man, I don't know what else is.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, we see all these hashtags about representation matters and all this other stuff when it's like a movie role or something goofy.
Yeah.
We need that in like the service industry. Seeing teachers like that, like positions of authority, that like stuff that actually matters, that's actually attainable. That's
like make sure we're going out to
representation that matters.
Meeting, not just the presidential election next time.
Yeah. Justin, I like the point that you brought up a couple of minutes ago when you were talking about, when you could be filling in that gap where maybe the father might need a spot and need some help in terms of like the influence. And I think one of the greatest honors, and this is, I guess, if we could just kind of bring this thing full circle when we're talking about, our relationship with each other and how we can be an asset to each other. I think one of the greatest things that we can experience as Black men is when another Black man trusts us with their children. You know what I mean? Not to say you're doing his job, you should be paying for their school and, I'm paying for, I'm not saying being a simp or anything like that. But I am saying, it's something considerable when a man can look at another man and say, I think so highly of where you are from a moral perspective as a man, from an integrity perspective, that I trust you to be a good proxy for me at times when I'm not there, or if I'm not, available. You know, that's so important. And you know, when I grew up, I've been in private school literally from pre-K up until master's degree. I've only been at private school, right? And like I said before, my first black teacher, who's a black woman, was in the 5th grade, but she was awful, to be honest with you, because she was really like on some. She was like all lives matter before there was all lives matter, and you know, she liked being black as far as it was her being black. You know, being a black woman.
Oh yeah, I know those.
Those insecurities really showed up a lot, but you know, and she didn't teach me of anything of relevance in terms of my blackness, right? But you know, up until then, all my teachers was white female, you know, and there was a clear difference in how they treated us. I'll give you a prime example. So this is the best example I can give you as to the cultural difference that you'll notice, right? I remember in the 4th grade, I was in the 4th grade in the year 2000 when George W. Bush was running up against Al Gore. And when I went to school, you know, it was in Hamilton. Now, Hamilton is right next to Trenton, which is where we all grew up. My parents are right-wing religious, right? So even though we lived in the hood, you know, we were in it, not of it sort of thing. But you got the other kids, they take the other bus from Trenton, right? And they might have a little bit more what you would generally expect from inner city black people, you know, politically speaking, is typically they go Democrat. So for some reason, I don't know why, but the teacher, she wanted to have a mock election. So she has this mock election, and obviously, you know, you got the white kids and me, because I only did what my parents wanted me to do, right? I put in the vote for George W. Bush. You got the other kids, they just put in the votes their parents was going for, the ones they was talking about, Al Gore. George Bush wound up winning, right? The hood kids was mad. The hood kids was mad as they looked at us. But the next day, when we came back from music class, the teacher, she had the classroom separated into, you know, she had a divider, right? One was heaven, one was hell, right? Because, you know, they also teach us like Bible stories and going to heaven, Lamb's Book of Life, all that. Right? So before she would take us one by one. Oh, your name's not in the Lamb's Book of Life. I'm sorry, you can't go into heaven, right? Kids would get sent to hell. She had like flames written on the shit and all that. I lied to y'all not. Every single one of the kids that voted Democrat, right, wound up in that hell portion. So now I'm sitting here in heaven with all the white kids, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, did I like, you know what I mean? And so, but it's crazy to me because, and on that side, it was, you know, they had like, on the heaven side, they had like fruit and stuff like that we could eat. And then on the hell side, I guess she didn't want us to take it too hard, and she didn't want us to tell our parents. So she put little candies, they're like little hot fireball candies and shit. And so my point was, it's like, yo, you see just how deeply impactful somebody who is not negatively impactful, somebody who is not in touch with the community that they are supposedly teaching, right? You see the impact that has on them. So it's like, if that is not the prime example, right? And people don't believe me when I tell that story, right? But I lied to you, like I put that on everything. It was exactly like that. She had all the black kids from Trenton that had the audacity to vote against her political whatever, right? Because I went to like a right-wing Baptist whatever, you know, elementary school. You know, she punished them and she penalized them. And just think about what that does to a child's psychology, right? It's like, damn, like as a black kid, if I align to this certain political philosophy, I'm going to go to hell. And you automatically, from a young age, from 8, 9 years old, you start to align yourself with unrighteousness. Because if you already think from a young age you're going to hell, why the fuck would you try not to?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the best example I can give somebody of the importance of, first of all, having black, period. I mean, black on both sides, not just on the outside, right? But black educators in general. But I think there's a definitely underserved area in terms of black male leadership in the education sphere. Right? So anytime I see those, I'm just like, oh, thank God. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I feel like black men, we naturally have a command presence, and so all those things that, you know, discipline and all that, it just naturally happens. Yeah. Just from just being present. Like kids buck up a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I even think it crosses over racial lines. People don't want to hear that, but I beg to differ. I say, yep, I'll get the white kids right too, better than you will.
I mean, our voices tend to be deeper. You know what I mean? We tend to be, you know, that stuff carries.
Yeah, it does. I mean, even I had a political discussion with my father last Sunday, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to raise my voice and going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think my wife never heard me like that. She was on the phone with her
Yeah.
mom, like during FaceTime or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just got quiet in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, I don't usually get loud because I have that commanding voice. Like, especially, like, at work. Like, you know, I've had jobs where, like, I had to raise my voice and then, like, you could hear a pin drop. People would hang up the calls that they was on just to look and see what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I it's definitely a gift that has a lot of power and has a lot of responsibility tied to that. I have one last question here. I'm trying to figure out how to frame it. When it comes to representation and Black people in high places and things like that, I feel like
Oh shit.
I feel like there is a dichotomy, a feeling of ambivalence of,
Double standard.
yeah, not even just that, but like I feel like Black people in high places, or at least what they consider high places, but really they're really just gatekeepers. I feel like there's I feel like they have like an internal struggle as to, you know, whether they want to give their people a leg up or to sell them out and throw them under the bus. And I'm trying to figure out. I mean, some people, they just some niggas are just, you know, they just hold niggas. They have no soul, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They just do that. You know, they're the Judas that'll, you know, I think it was 6 pieces of silver, like
30 pieces.
30.
Something. Okay.
Okay, yeah, it was some. You can't get much with that, but you know, it was
Mm-hmm.
whatever. You know, he sold out Jesus for a dub sack, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that there are people in high places that they want to do more, but their hands are tied, and there's others that are just like, well,
Oh
you
man.
sit, we sit.
You know, I feel like Nas he made a song on his last album, man. On the King's Disease, where the hook talked about how like Michael Jordan did so much more than people realize. He just didn't talk about it. I think the point that I go with that is I feel like sometimes you gotta realize that some of these men, they do what they do, how they do it. It's not gonna be how we want. And we gotta realize some people don't have our best don't have our intentions. They are here for self. Like that 50 Cent bonanza. 50 Cent has always been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you like him, I mean, you should like him for that. You know, I would never say anybody's like 50 Cent because of his team aspect. No.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's where you were going with that, at least.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I was really thinking about that, you know, recently. I saw some other stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I feel like I'm working on this empathy thing because I've had a lack of it for so long. And, you know, I'm trying to broaden my horizons, better myself and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, like, if I was an uppity boule Negro and I had the opportunity to, you know,
So, and the narratives within it.
Say that again?
I said, and I think a lot of this sometimes is it's once again us not being in control of our community or the narratives within it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, most definitely, 1,000%. But yeah, like if I'm in a position of power per se to help other people, like, you know, get out of their own personal bondage,
Mm-hmm.
and I could either shake the table and help them out, or, you know, play it safe and just, you know, keep them down.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta find a new position or something. Like, I just can't see myself doing that. I actually had a dream, and this is crazy. And my dreams never make sense, but there's always a message behind each of them. I write them down. For some reason, I was selling drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was selling pills for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And this brother had asked me, you know, how much am I selling it for? And my boy, who copped it for me, he was like, yeah, we got it for 12. That's what he told me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I sold it to him for 30. But he overheard what my boy said. He's just like, damn, really, my brother? I'm like, look, this is good old capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I got to get rich so I can help others.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? If we all broke, then like, you know, it's the Hunger Games out here. But if I can get myself up, I can bring others with me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my take on that. Braxton?
So, I mean, what just for my own edification, just restate the question just really fast. I got a little off track in terms of.
Okay, so if you're in a position of power to help like employ other Black people or help them get a leg up, you know, kind of put them on the right path to maybe economic freedom or anything to that regard. But in exchange for that power, it's like almost like a quota. Like you can only help so much, or if you were to help those people, you would compromise your position.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a lot of people with that, a lot of the blue checks, you know, that people talk about on Twitter, you know, the verified accounts, the people that have, you know, social media influencers and all these other things. And, you know, they're gatekeepers, is what they really are, you know, if you think about it. And it's just like, I'm not sure how they live with themselves. Like, I mean, some people, they have no soul, you know what I'm saying? So it's nothing to them. Other people, I feel like it may be a struggle for them. And I always wanted to know what your thoughts were about that. If you were to, if you ever thought about that, being in that position or those people in those positions.
I think when you don't have, as a community, when you don't have a culture of paying it forward, you really do look at you individually making it as like this gift to the community, right? If we don't have, if you feel like making it or getting to a certain position of prominence and wealth or whatever, right, is the goal, rather than the, you know, another chapter, right? So that you know, the next chapter is in how do you, you know, disseminate that or distribute that to the community and open up doors for everyone else, right? It's only natural then that you would look upon that as, you know, well, I did it. So that's where do I go from here? And if anything, my very presence, my very, you know, the inspiration of me being me is enough for the people. You know, that's a gift enough to the people, right? And so that's one thing, right? Now, as far as the blue checks, I think for those people, I don't think they ever had any ambitions to actually change the situation, to change the, you know, to make any type of structural change as it relates to, you know, what spaces we dominate. You know, I mean, it's like many of them, most of them, damn near all of them, let's just say all of them for the sake of argument, they're perfectly fine with just being that token Negro that integrated in there, and then they can whine and bitch and complain about how miserable they are because there's a lack of, you know, whatever, a lack of representation. You're the only one there and whatever, but that's just crocodile tears, right? As far as these Boule Negros. But the truth is, there's a certain feeling of validation for the Boule Negro, right? That knowing that they are the exclusive, you know, they're the minority. It's something that it does something to their psyche, right? Because for them, there's no pride in the community being uplifted. Their pride is in them being an example of being uplifted despite all the drama and whatever, right? Which is another reason why the only thing they will talk about are the problems within the community, and they can get, you know, rise to even more prominence and get even more endorsements by companies that have no care in the world as to the actual solutions that will fix things for us, right? So yeah, I mean, as far as, I mean, gatekeepers, they've existed since forever, right? When it comes to us, I think we as a people can least afford gatekeepers. But here we are. And I think one big reason for that is because as a community, it seems like the ones of us that do get to a position of power, we tend not to be the ones that are collective minded. Now, I do agree, right? And I'm obviously, you know me, I'm a finance guy. So I do agree that there is a certain, you know, given how dynamic, you know, somebody can get rich in this country, right? It is very feasible for one person to make a massive impact, right, on the community. And I want us to continue doing that. For example, Justin, as you mentioned, Michael Jordan, or, you know, other, you know, philanthropists, obviously. But there's a part of me that wishes that the people that occupy those more popular spaces, like those blue checks, there's a part of me that really does wish that they were much more less talk and more check writing. Or I'll put it to you this way, right? So obviously I like to, do creative writing, right? And one of my favorite characters of all time is James Bond. And I read an article the other day, it was by, I think, a black man. And he said, we don't need a black James Bond. We need our own secret agent. But the issue is, it's like you got people, and we got a lot of talented people in Hollywood. I'm sure that this idea has been brought up, right, many times by these this black talent, but they're not in a space where, that stuff is going to be taken seriously, right? Because first of all, there's a certain image of black people that they want to be, projected back to us, right? And the truth is, they don't care enough about it to want to start our own. Like, let's start Bollywood or Bollywood, another type of Hollywood, whatever, right? They don't have that. They don't care that much, right?
Right.
So I mean, it's really going to take people in order for people to be cognizant, in order for people to be successful, or in order for that to have any relevance to the community, they have to be conscious people and people that are community minded, right? And then when you see that they're donating this amount, that amount, you won't think that they're doing less because you already know where their heart is, and they're thinking from a community standpoint, not just what's a good tax write-off.
Most definitely, and I think that with those in a position of power, once helping the community the collective consciousness is worth more to them than white validation.
Mm-hmm.
Once they'll get more excited about building a community center or teaching kids financial literacy as opposed to being the first black guy that this white chick sleeps with.
Right.
Then we can get on the right track.
Yeah.
All right. Just final points here. Just if you could tell black men anything at all, like just one thing, what would it be?
Bro, if you just look back at time, literally there's nothing that black men have not been able to do when they put themselves together, like anything. We made from rap music, from the richest civilizations in history. Like, we've done everything when we work together, like that simple. We can destroy against each other, but we can create so much together. Like, just try to tap into that humility to be able to put the differences aside to build together. That's all we need.
Most definitely. Braxton, same question.
I would say the more time and attention that you put into yourself, not into the superficial, I got these many bitches, I'm making this amount of money, you hold the money up there like that and shit. Once you really put the time and attention into, and the fine detail into who you are as a man, the better you will feel about yourself, and the better that you feel about yourself, the better you're going to interact with the black people around you, as black men and black women. And once you understand how much power you have, which only comes from when you understand who you are, you'll understand how much responsibility you have. You won't look at that responsibility as a burden, but rather as a privilege to serve your community. As we come from a long line of scientists and mathematicians and architects, tribal kings and warrior chiefs and philosophers and medicine men. We come from that history. That's the stock that we come from. Understand who you are. Put the time into yourself to re-tap into whatever that is that you are called to be. Your self-esteem will go higher, and obviously it'll make for better interactions among black people, which is just going to lift us up as a people.
My final thing that I want to say to the black men out there is that you are your biggest responsibility. And with that being said, you being responsible for yourself because you're responsible for your community, your children, the people around you. And if you're not right, nothing around you will be right. The Bible says,
talk about it.
Seek ye first the kingdom, but the kingdom's inside you. So you need to find a kingdom within yourself and become that king that you're supposed to be. And then the kingdom shall become and manifest around you. Can I get an amen? Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Amen. Amen.
Amen on Sunday. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Braxton, if they want to find you, where can they find you at?
Me,
All right.
we adjusted.
I ain't know what you said either.
Yeah, you, Braxton.
Oh, okay. Y'all can find me at House of Braxton on Instagram. House of Braxton. Also, Braxton's Club. Ties, tie clips, tie bars, men's accessories coming soon. That's going to be at Braxton's. You can follow me on both. House of Braxton, HOUSE OFBRAXTON, and then you got Braxton's Club spelled just the way it said, BRAXTONSCLU.
All right, Jess, where can they find you at?
So, hey, you can find me at on Instagram. It's the_hip_hop_professor. You can also find me on Twitter, usually saying random things, crazy things. Don't hold that against me, but just no fucks given. JUSTNOFAUXGIVEN. No fucks given. My podcast.
All right.
No doubt, no doubt. You can find where you found me at. Make sure you like, subscribe, and cancel me. It is what it is. Thank you, gentlemen, for the chat.